Nancy, nice to see you. I wish I was here with you in a different circumstances. It has been 3 years, and before we start talking, I want to say that I'm not enjoying this because I know that you're reliving the whole thing, coming to the exact spot where Jonathan lost his life. But this has been 3 years. What's different now? Why are you here today? Why did you choose to be here today?
I came out today because the death of George Floyd was a real eye-opener. And I stayed silent for almost 2 years. It's 2.5 years to be exact. I stayed silent for almost 2 years because the case is still ongoing. Right before the virus had hit us, we were in court and deposition hearings and stuff like that. So now we're at a standstill because the virus and no courts are open. But from George Floyd's death, this opened my eyes, it made me strong, and I need to do what's right, not just for Jonathan, but all lives lost due to police brutality.
Now, Nancy, I think that I need to make it clear that you're not here to protest against police. You are here to protest against injustice. Am I right?
Yes, exactly.
So the problem is injustice. The problem, I think, is that it takes too long to investigate anything that involves the police. And very often, the result of that investigation, it's pro-police. Very rarely, they find wrongdoings in whatever they do. Am I correct in that assumption, or do you have a different opinion?
No, you're absolutely correct. Again, we waited patiently. We didn't make noise because we thought the system is going to evidence showed that this was almost like an open and shut type of case. We didn't make noise because we were sure the Attorney General's office really failed us. They had so many things in their hand, witnesses that they didn't interview, things that they did have in hand, and they didn't put it into mind. It was easier to say that my son died from drugs rather than excessive force or police brutality.
Now, some people out there are saying that the passing of Jonathan was due to, ingesting some cocaine, I believe. The autopsy report came out. Was that found in his system? Was it because he digested, large amounts of cocaine, or the autopsy support's different?
An autopsy did reveal, or toxicology report did reveal that there was drugs in the system, but not enough to kill him. And the drugs that they say he ingested that day was fully intact. He never swallowed it, never burst in his stomach. That's not what killed him that day. So I do want to say that I'm not going to deny that he may have been high or was high the night before, but that's not what killed him that day.
Exactly. The point is cause of death. That was not what killed him. What killed him was the asphyxiation from the police officers, correct?
Yes. Positional asphyxiation, cardiac arrest from the taser. Jonathan was tased twice and instantly became lifeless at the moment of the second tase.
And what are you asking at this point? What are you asking the system to do?
They need to change the laws. They need to hold people accountable. The cops are going to continue to do this. If they know that they're not getting fired, they're protected, no pensions are taken away, they're going to continue to do this tomorrow, next week. It's happening during these protests.
I wouldn't be too surprised, about things continue to be as they've been, because we can see with everything that is going on, the racial tension in the nation at this moment. They know that everyone has a video camera and we are filming them, and we still see the abuse, as we saw the other day with the 75-year-old man. We're still seeing the same things that we've been here for.
You're exactly right. And, Rue, I want to point out, this is exactly, I probably stand on the ground of where my son had passed. And because of blocking the street with police cars, a bus stop, there was no camera that came out. And if my son would have had a camera, a civilian camera, this probably would have been more evident of what happened. But we just had a waiting game, and we had to wait and wait. Body cams, car dash, police cams, those were turned on and off throughout the process. What does that tell you? You know, we're talking about putting body cams on police officers. What good are they when you have access to shut them off and on when you want?
So my suggestion to people is, we know that body cams on police officers are not working very much. So nowadays, all of us carry phones. So when you see something, start filming it. That film might be, you know, something that might help resolving that particular thing. Use your camera, because nowadays is, if you don't film it, it didn't happen, so film it.
It's their word against our word, basically. Yes, you're right. And film anything. You may not think it turns into being something, but you could have caught a glimpse of something. And, you know, they push you away with your cameras and no recording, and they push you back, but you have the right. You have the right, and don't be afraid. And you go through this all the time, Rue, when you're at a scene and they want to push you back. And yet you're oppressed. But civilians, you have the right to take these videos, and don't be afraid, just as long as you're not interfering with the investigation that's going on.
Exactly. We need to make it clear. Do not, you know, do not get involved in the investigation. Don't get in between the cops and the subject, because otherwise they will take you in and say that you interfered. So film in a distance. Capture those images in a distance. If it's needed, like you just said, you might catch a glimpse of something that is very important.
Exactly. And you'll be surprised. Bits and pieces with witnesses that we had. You know, everything matched up to the original story. Who said this and who said that. There's maybe small discrepancies of what people may not have saw, but at the end of the day, most of the story is aligning. It's matching up to what had happened to Jonathan. He laid here and was not resisting them, was not fighting with them. He laid here with his arms underneath his stomach, flat on the ground, and they wanted to just cuff him. He got off his back. If you would have got off his back and turned him over, you would have been able to do that. But no, your way was to taser him. You know, a person who possibly, like they knew, had put something in his mouth, a drug substance in his mouth, a person who was out of breath based on witness reports, a person who wasn't resisting and fighting with nobody. What would make them react the way they had reacted, you know?
Nancy, have you spoken to the Attorney General, or has he said anything in regards to this matter, to this issue, particular incident?
Back in, last time I've had word with them was in October of 19, and I met with the, the special investigator on it. And it's sad because no remorse, no type of anything. You know, they made their report and they just blamed this on drugs. They did say that they had written up warnings and things in the report that the cops need to change, and the wrong that they did do to correct it, the negligence to correct it. But that didn't make them accountable, because I said to them, their negligence caused my son's death. And the word to me was, but it's okay, because I guess they're law enforcement.
Now, do you know of any complaints against the police officers that were involved in the death of your son?
Yes, there are previous complaints, and from the top 3 officers on the scene, there is previous complaints. And one of them, actually, who is a paramedic / lieutenant, has cost this town money already, because he had a medical suit against him. I don't know the details. I don't care to know the details too much. I just know that they already have history, and that alone says they don't need to be on the streets anymore. Okay, this is not the first incident. With Greenberg Police Department.
So that is part of the problem, that they don't take the complaints filed against their own police officers very serious. That's why we have to repeal 58. Exactly. That must be repealed. Yes. We need to know the reports. Just like if something had happened and your son was involved, in less than half an hour, everybody would know his record since he was 10 years old. But when it involves a police officer, those records are not released as it stands today.
Exactly. Everything came out of about my son and any victim, everybody. Oh, he was high, he's on drugs, he's this, he was shoplifting, he was doing, but yet no word on that police officer and their actions until months later, if not years later, when stuff comes out. This needs to stop. We need to know who we're dealing with. They need to know who they're hiring. These law enforcement, it doesn't take much to hire a police officer. Granted, you pass the test, but what special training? 6 months of training or in a camp or boot camp, that determines that, police academy, that's the right word. 6 months of police academy determines that you can get put out the street and our lives depend on 6 months of police academy training. No, that's got to be different.
Let me go and talk to some of the guys, and let's also make it clear that police officers are on the street to enforce the law. They are not police officers, judges, executioners, and everything. That's not their job. They're not there to pass sentence, especially life sentences.
Exactly. I just want to add one thing, Rue. And, if you asked me before, what do I want or what do I... what I do want? I want maybe the attorney generals or the state of New York to really reconsider and maybe consider opening up cases. My son... is not the only one that has been through this, but I can tell you under my son's case, we had three different attorney generals in the last 3 years, from Schneiderman to Underwood to Tish James currently, who really oversaw that, and did they take the attention for it because of everything that was going on? Who really looked into this case? Who made that final determination? And that's something that really needs to be revisited and open his case up again.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. Now let me have a few words with Iron Lady. Tasha, I see you everywhere. And we must be everywhere to talk about the current injustice. We need to be everywhere to demand that the police enforcement, law enforcement, pedals back. They are not there to pass justice. They are not there to kill people. They are not there to do the things that they are currently doing. What is your point of view on this?
This is not something that just started, okay? This is something that's just been brought to the forefront. But this has been happening for many, many years to come. Now is the time for them to get it right. It's been so long that everyone has been fighting for justice for everybody. And what they don't realize is when you come into the minority communities, it's different. It's a different kind of cut. You have to be in that person's shoes to actually understand what we're here fighting for. It's justice for all.
But Tasha, I think we need to do more than just protest, because I've been going around every walk, every protest, and it seems like the politicians are saying the things they know the people want to hear. But my thing is, what they're saying are the same things that those on the street, police officers on the street, are hearing it, because what they say and what they do on the street are two different things.
Exactly. And that's why I think we need to sit down and we need to get to know what the people really, what is due to them, what they really need, so we can make those changes. Because like you said, we can protest all we want. Will that change anything? We need to get things down on paper. We need to change different laws. It's a lot of things that need to change. So the protest is the start, but in order for us to finish, we have to sit down. We all have to go to the round table and make sure that all of these injustices that are being done are made right, because there's a lot of wrongs.
So guys, use the hashtag actions, not words. What we need is actions. Words, we got enough of that. This has been going on for 400 years. This is not something that just started happening last month. We have had deaths after deaths after deaths. And every time there is a death, there is a protest. But nothing changes much. After 2 months of protest, things go back to the way they used to be. It's time for a change, I think.
It is. And not all police officers are bad. I have people that are friends and family members that are police officers. But we need to wean out the ones that are bad. Because at the end of the day, if we don't, this will continue. And we want this to stop. And we want this to stop now. The change starts now.
Thank you, Tasha. Jonathan's grandmother. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
I don't need to introduce that young lady. So guys, we are here in Hartsdale. The address is 210 Central Park Avenue. If you want to come and join this protest, come on down. But remember, this is a peaceful protest. This is not a protest against police department. This is a protest against the injustice that is very often tolerated by the police department. This is a protest to fight injustice, not against police department. This is a peaceful protest. This is a protest to expose the wrong and demand the right. Governor Cuomo needs to act on legislation that is going to be submitted.
Investigate the police. 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 What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. Say his name. Jonathan. Say his name. Jonathan. Jonathan Maldonado.
Jonathan Maldonado.
We want justice for Jonathan Maldonado.
We want justice for Jonathan Maldonado.
We want the truth.
The truth.
Stop the cover-up.
Stop the cover-up.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Who are we going to call? The Attorney General.
Attorney General.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job.
No more abuse.
No more abuse.
No more abuse. No more abuse. No more abuse. No more abuse.
No more abuse.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Now. Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?